All right. Hey, everyone. Um, we are live. We are live. We are live. Welcome to Nakut World Inclusion. I'm your host, Sean Ferguson. Um, and for today's discussion, we are going to discuss about 6 stages of marriage. But before I can do that, before we get into it and go in a deep dive of it, please click the like button, click the notification, and also subscribe to my channel and just share this video to everyone. Um, it doesn't matter what community is. This message that I'm going to um, I would say teach. Let's say teach, preach, guide. This is just for everybody. It's not specifically for one group. This is everyone. Um, I would say this is very important message. I did my little research, um, and of course, I relayed it to the. I relate the message to the Bible. Um, this is very important because I'll tell you this. Um, I'll say about 50, I would say about 50% of divorce. Yeah, I would say 50% of people who are married has ended in divorce. So, um, I mean, it's now I could be wrong, but I mean, it's usually about it, and usually 75% that start the divorce is divorce made by women, which is really bad because women, their emotions all over the place, and usually at least 75% divorces came from women, not men. Only men is 25%. So, and usually with men, you know, for 25%, like you must have like really done something wrong to have men to divorce you. Now, some of them could be, that yes, um, man was like just I don't know. I would say cheated, and some of them, some men, do cheat and just don't want to be in the marriage anymore. But you know, majority of men who divorces their wives, there is a pretty good reasons why men divorce their wives, but women there's no good reason, but they still do it. Now, if there's like cheating, abusive, um, you know, not being faithful, all that, then yes, I can understand. But when they're like struggling, financially and all that other stuff, or when guys, um, when you have flaws and stuff like that. Most of the time women leave because they feel like they're not happy and their are involved in it. And because their emotions are involved, is the reasons why, 75% of women want to divorce their men because their emotions made the decisions for them instead of using their logic. So, you know, uh, correct me if I'm wrong. You can always leave me a comment, where I'm wrong at, but, you know, some of the time I am right, and I do my research before I even go on live. So, but yes, it's just, you know, marriages and relationships, they always, break up all the time. So, I'm going to give you guys 6 stages of marriage, and most of the time, a lot of people get stuck on stage 3, which is right in the middle, which is going through the hard times. But before I discuss all of that, I'm going to tell you the 6th stage, and then we'll go deeper dive into each one of them. So, okay, so for the 6th stage, all right. Um, so I will say stage 1. Um, Usually we go through the romance or the honeymoon stage, and everything basically feels exciting, effortless, and emotionally intense. Couples tends to idolize each other and focus on just similarities. So usually in a romance and honeymoon stage, everything looks good. Your heartbeat, is going up. You know, like basically beating faster. Your emotions filled with love, enjoyment, things of that nature, and so on and so forth. And basically, you just baby, basically just goo goo gaga over each other. I would just say that, you know. Y'all just can't keep eyes off of one another. Number 2, reality adjustment stage. Basically, it just means that differences starts to show up, habits, expectation, communication styles. The real person replaces the idolized version. Basically, the reality stage is the character. We all have flaws. All of us has flaws. However, for us guys and girls too, but for us guys and girls, um, sometimes we ignore the flaws, which is basically we ignore the red flags, and because we ignore the red flags, there are certain things that pop up that you didn't like, but sometimes you ignore them because you're highly in love with that person, and you just going crazy over that person. So, and number 3, um this is the most difficult ones. If you pass 3, then you're okay, but if you don't, more likely it's going to break up. This is what makes or breaks a relationship, or it could makes and breaks a marriage. And this is the hardest one. So this is often the hardest phase. Couples may argue about control, roles, money, family, or values. Many relationships either break here or learn healthier conflict skills. And this is where a lot of people struggle at, is uh, phase 3. Now, I know with me and my wife, um, I think we're more into we're right between 2 and 3 right now. Actually, I would say we're more closer to 3. We're in a power struggle. For example, I just got my surgery done. Um, you know, thank God. Um, the medical bills doesn't cost a whole lot. You know, because man, we were like freaking out, and we trying to like, okay, how can we like strategize and you know pay like monthly payments, but we didn't have to worry about that, which is great for us. Um, the other one is house, mortgage, and things like that. We did discuss of uh, how we can get a house and things like that, and we did that. So I would say we're more closer to 3, yeah, 2 and 3. Now we haven't got hit hard with something yet. Knock on wood. I hope we don't hit. I hope we never get hit with something hard. But and again, it's bound to happen. Circumstances will happen. It's part of life. It's what you do with it is where your character grows. So therefore, um, I would say it's a tough tough part. Number 4, stability stage. Conflict decreases as couples develop routines and better communication. There's more acceptance of differences and clear boundaries. Um, I would say, yeah, I would say from me and my wife, we're like between 2, 3, and 4. So that's where we are at. Um, you know, we just got married not too long ago. We got married in July. So let me see, July, say August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So we've been married for 8 months for right now. Usually most marriages usually go into stage 3, I'll say within 3 to 6 years. So, um, usually most marriage are there for 3 to 6 years. That's why I'm just thinking like, I mean, we discuss things, we don't argue as much, but yet again, we haven't gone through some tough circumstances yet. So like, it's more of like give and take. So we don't know where we're at. However, you know, whenever like certain circumstances does hit us, um, we are kind of prepared for it in some ways, not in others. But you know, we're still learning. We're still learning and we're still growing. However, as long as we keep Jesus Christ in between us, we be okay. If we don't have Jesus Christ in between us, then it's gonna fall. You just gotta think of a triangle, and you just gotta, I'm like here and here, and then we just gotta get closer up to Christ. So that's what we usually think about. But anyways, I digress. I'm gonna go ahead and continue on. So, But yeah, 4, stability stage, conflict decreases as couples develop routines and better communication. There's more acceptance, differences, and clearer boundaries. So we got basically on stage 4, you really have to communicate with each other. You have to discuss. I know some people don't like conflicts, but you do have to discuss the boundaries of, what you accept, what you don't accept, you know. For example, um for example, I'll just put it this way, you know, you don't want your wife to like blow money on some crazy stuff, you know and you want to save your money for something that's important, and you discuss with her like, look, you're allowed to spend this much, but if you go overboard, you know there's going to be some issues. So yes, you do have to set some boundaries within a marriage, because if you don't, you know, one or two of you guys be walking over each other, and it's going to uh, destroy a marriage. So, give you, you know, give you a pretty good example. So for number 5, commitment stage, the relationship deepens into a conscious choice rather than just emotion. Trust, loyalty, and long-term planning become central. Basically, it just means that you use logic. It's a choice. Commitment is a choice. It's not based off of emotions. Every decision comes with a choice, not emotions. You don't want to make decisions on your emotions. That can really destroy you. Number 6, co-creation, legacy stage. Couples work together toward shared meaning, raising children, building a life mission, contributing to community, or creating a lasting legacy together. And actually, me and my wife are working towards that. We're working towards, having kids someday. We're working towards the legacy, and of course, the legacy that we want to set for our family help is to help people with special needs and lead the people with special needs to Christ, and and to serve the special needs community. And so those are the six different, or those are the 6 stages of marriages. So, um, and so on and so forth. Um, so for stage, talk more on stage 3, because this is the most important one. This is one of out of all the stages, stage 3 is the most important one, because I see a lot of divorces. I see a lot of um, relationship being destroyed. Not only that, I see, you know, I see 75%, of women divorcing their man because they're not either happy, or because the person works too much, or um or they just want to go to the club and do whatever they want, and things like that, and dress however they want, and you know and really that's not the right way to go. So I'm going to help both you guys out, men and women. I'm just going to help you guys out. And again, you know, I have ADHD, autism, and Tourette syndrome, and me and my wife are doing okay working together as a team. So, here are some things. So, here's a couple usually through the power struggle stage, since that's the phase where most relationship or marriages feel the most tense. All right, one, shift from winning to understanding. Arguments often turn into competition. The key shift is asking, what is my partner actually needing or afraid of, instead of trying to prove a point. Two, learn your conflict patterns. Most couples fall into repeating loops. One pursues, one withdraws, or both escalate. Noticing the pattern is more important than the specific topic. Three, pause before reacting. Taking a short break during heated moments prevents saying things you don't mean. Even 10 to 20 minutes can reset emotions. Four, separate problems versus persons. Focus on the issue: money, chores, time, not character attacks like you always or you never. Um, Never say that. We usually use I statement, I feel this, or I feel that. So always use the I statement, never use you, because you're more likely attacking that person when you use you. Uh, Five, practice repair after conflict. Healthy couples don't avoid fights, they repair them. Apologizing, clarify intent, or reconnecting emotionally after disagreement. So, there are some things that I do say because sometimes I mess around too much. And I mean, I could get annoying at times too, but most of the time, I mess around too much, and like sometimes I don't get serious of things, and usually my wife doesn't like that. And so, when she's telling me that she feels not f- when she tells me she's not feeling heard or anything like that, it gets my attention, and then usually I just apologize and just tell her, all right, I'll listen more, I'll stop messing around, with that issue. Um and basically uh just, be there for the person, and make sure that she is heard. But uh but sometimes, I do mess around, and then of course it gets bad. And so on and so forth. So yeah. Number six, build we language. Instead of you versus me, shift to us versus the problem. This changes the emotional tone of the whole relationship. Um, and so basically this shifts So when you put like us, like we are us, like we need to fix this. We need to save money. We need to quit buying stuff instead of I or you. We just, we put in we. We need to, like say if I give this example, me and my wife, I've been telling my wife, we need to save some money for our backyard patio, you know, and we need to buy it, this month or things like that. Um, and so we discuss things together, and it actually helps out when we actually work as a team. So here are the signs where people are stuck in the power struggle stage versus actually moving forward. So the sign, so I'll give you some signs where most people are stuck. These patterns repeat often. Arguments feels like the same fight over and over, just different topics. One or both of you focus on winning instead of solving. Resentment builds even after apologizing. Um, you keep bringing up the past during new arguments. One thing that you should never do, especially for women, because most women do this all the time. Well, not all the time, but some women do this. And I'm not saying all women, I'm just saying some. Because I experienced this in the past, is they always bring up stuff from the past of what their significant other did, you know. They always bring up what their boyfriend or their husband did in the past or what mistake that they did in the past. You should never do that because it'll, it will make him feel like he's not good enough for you. And that when you keep bringing some stuff in the past, more likely he's just going to give up on you. So you should never do that. Um, let's see. Another one, emotional distance grows after conflict, silent treatment, withdrawal, or shutdown. Um, I'll say be careful of like doing that. Um, you never want to give your spouses a silent treatment or withdrawal because otherwise it's gonna cause issues. So you never want to do that. And then the last one, you start questioning the relationship itself frequently. Is this worth it? Is this relationship worth it? Is this marriage worth it? Like so on and so forth. All right, the signs of you're progressing out of it. So this is the sign, good sign of progressing. These shows growth and stability between 3 and 4. So you still argue, but recover faster afterwards. You can pause and restart conversation without escalating. You start noticing your own triggers and taking responsibility for them. Apologies feel real and actually change behavior. You feel more like a team even during disagreements. Conflicts becomes less frequent or less intense over time. Um, I would say so for me and my I would say for me and my wife, um, the one thing that we don't, discuss about is politics, because there is a trigger, and you don't want to discuss with someone who has like you don't want to discuss some with someone who has, you know, a very big disagreement with you on. So like me and my wife, we have a huge disagreement on politics. I believe in something that she doesn't believe, and we just don't usually discuss them because, you know, if we discuss them, it's gonna turn into an argument, and it's not just argument. It's gonna turn into like a debate, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep the relationship and the marriage as pure, healthy um, conversation as we can be. No arguments. The key idea is the turning point isn't no more fights. It's fights that don't damage the relationship anymore. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and map this out. And these are good questions that you should ask yourself. So, how do you conflicts usually go? Exciting but rare, frequent arguments about differences, repeating fights plus frustration. You know, we argue, but we cover and fix things faster now. Two, after a disagreement, what happens? It's barely affects us. We feel disconnected for a while. Resentment lingers. We don't talk through it and reconnect. And then three, how do you see your partners most of the time? Idolize, exciting. Is it we're different by trying? Uh, why don't they change? You know, feelings. We're a team, even when it's hard. You got to ask yourself these three questions, and see where your guy's at. And what do you want to do to change the answer? So, all right. So, I'm going to relate this to the Bible. Um, I'm going to relate all this issues to the Bible because in a lot of different ways in a marriage or a relationship, a lot of people get stuck on stage three, and they either break or they either stay together or they come apart. But I'll say before you go to even stage three, focus on stage one and two. The reality is you want to go to two and see what type of character does this person have? Does this person lie? Does this person cause issue? Does this person have entitlement issue? Um, does this person ask for money a lot? Which I don't get why like a guy be with someone who asks be with someone who asks for money. Usually anyone who asks for money or asks for anything on the first date, usually you want to cut them off because they're going to cause issues later. So, but I digress. So the Bible has many passages related to marriage, but here are some of the most important and commonly referenced ones. Creation of marriage is one. Genesis 2:24 says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." This is the foundational verse describing marriage as a lifelong union. Number 2, love and commitment in marriage. In 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, it says, love is patient, love is kind. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves. Often called the love chapter. It describes how love should function in marriage. Um, Number 3, marriage roles and mutual respect. This is very, very important um because in a marriage most people don't respect each other. Um, sometimes women don't respect men and men don't respect women. Um, and so on and so forth. So says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church. Each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself. And the wife must respect her husband. This passage emphasized sacrificial love and mutual respect. Um, a lot of times, from my experience and what I see a lot of women not respecting their husband. I see a lot of women um, belittling the husband, you know, um, calling him names, in front of everybody out in public, using him for his money, and if he's broke or he's struggling to find a job, it's like you leave him because he's not helping providing, which I can understand. But there's no right to leave your husband. Instead, you should encourage him, help him, um, help him to grow. You know, whatever it is, help him out. Maybe help him, make a business for him, or anything like that. So um, this is very important, and a lot of marriage couples and a lot of relationship is like they fall apart because they don't respect each other. Um, Number 4, unity in marriage, in Mark 10:9. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. This highlights the permanence of marriage. And then number 5, practical guidance. Colossians 3:13 through 14, it says, bear with each other and forgive one another, and over all these virtues, but put on love, which binds them together in perfectly unity. This focuses on forgiveness and unity in daily life. In daily life, this focuses on it. So, all right. So, um, give you a bigger picture. And I'll give you some key Bible teachings specifically about conflict, struggles, and healing and marriage, because we all struggle in that. Um, we all struggle deeply. So, handling conflict with love. In James 1:19 through 20, it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. This is a core principle for preventing arguments from escalating. I know for some relationship, like when I see couples argue and get mad at each other, like they always call each other name and belittling each other, especially like out in public, which is totally wrong because when you do those things, you know, especially out in public, you are humiliating the person. And when you're humiliating the person, that that's not that's not what God really wants. And I seen this all over the place, and you know, and it's just pretty messed up. So I do see that a lot. So instead, you know, take a break, pause, uh, think of what you're gonna say before you say it. That's all I'm saying. All right. Uh Next one, number two, peace over pride. Um I see most couples, I see a lot. What I do see is they are very prideful. Um, both men and women. Um, for the men's side, they think they're, big and bad, and you know, and you can control the person. Really, you can't control uh the women. I mean, you just can't control them. Um, you could reason with them. You can tell them your boundaries, but you can't control them. You gotta let them. You gotta let them do whatever they. Well, not whatever they want, but you gotta let them bloom, pretty much. You gotta let them bloom and things like that. And if you don't like the way that they bloom, or they bloom in a negative way, you know, then you can easily like leave that person, you know. But you have no control. And one thing I would never advise you is I would never advise you to put a hand on a woman. Like that's one thing I would never accept is that. For women's side, um, what I see a lot is more of the entitlement issue, where they think that I can do whatever I want, and really you don't. You really can't do whatever you want, because basically you're just disrespecting your husband, and that's not cool at all. And I do see that a lot, where women disrespect their husband by the way that they dress. I see that a lot, and by humiliating them in front of people out in public, belittling him, things of that nature, like, and using them for money, using them for anything. And like, let's say if he lost his job, then what? You're gonna leave him? Like, it just tells me what your character is. So, really, I would say I'd rather have peace over pride. Because if you have pride, you're gonna cause a lot of chaos. So peace over pride. And Romans 12:18, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. In marriage, this emphasizes doing your part, even when things are difficult. You always want to do your part. Uh, Number 3, controlling words during conflict. In Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. It shows how tone and communication can either heal or escalate tension. Number 4, forgiveness in marriage. Ephesians 4:31-32. Get rid of bitterness. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. Forgiveness is a repeated theme in marriage health. Actually, what keeps a marriage healthy, pretty much. Um, and then number 5, restoring broken relationship. Colossians 3:13 says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." This focuses on repairing a relationship or marriage instead of holding grudges at each other. Um, 6. God's view of marriage unity. In Matthew 19:6, it says, "So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate you." So, which means it reinforces commitment even through hardship. So, I'll give you an example. Good example is if your husband lost his job and he's struggling to get a job and he's broke and you just don't have any money to keep a house afloat, you know, instead of letting that divide you up, just stay with that person and be with that person. And you know what is the that uh one thing that kind of destroys a relationship or marriages, one thing in mind. The one thing I would say is what destroys it, because it wasn't like that in the past, but one thing that destroys a marriage and a relationship is either your laptop computer or a regular computer or your cell phones. The internet. The internet is the one thing that destroys a marriage and a relationship, especially for women. Because most women, well, I wouldn't say most, I would say some women and men, but more so than women, uh, the internet. So, um, where a lot of guys uh, DM them, and because the men DM um, women, they get all the attention, and then boom, you know, they get caught up, and that's how it destroys a relationship. Whereas men, we look at the one that we struggle with, especially if you're dealing with issues, arguments, and things like that, and the relationship is not going well, we look at porn, we look at dating sites and things like that, and we get in trouble that way. So usually it's most likely the internet that destroys us the most in the relationship. And basically, the two becomes one flesh. So you should never let the internet separate you from each other. And that's usually what happens 100% of the time. What I experienced and saw is that the internet is the only thing that separate a relationship, and marriages, because the internet got involved. All right, so the big picture from the Bible is marriage is not described as conflict free, but as a covenant built on love, forgiveness, patience, and commitment through difficult time. Here's a simple Bible based step by step guide for strengthening or repairing a struggling marriage, drawn from the verses we discuss. So, number one, start with self reflection, not blaming, not blaming others. Principle: examine yourself first. Ask yourself, how have I contributed to the tension? Focus on your actions, tone, and reactions, not just your partner's behavior. See Matthew 7:3 idea, removing the plank in your own eye. You want to move the plank at, in Matthew 7:3, I know it says something like, why are you looking at your brother speck in their eye? First, remove the plank out of your own eye so that you can see very clearly. Then you can take the speck out of your brother's eye or your sister's eye. So basically, reflect on yourself, focus on what mistake you have, pray to God, repent, all that, and then ask God to help you see very clearly. Then you could take the plank out of your spouse's eye. Number two, practice slow down communication. James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. Don't go quick to anger, quick to speak, and slow to listen. Like, that doesn't work. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. A lot of people don't do that. Practically, pause before responding, especially in conflict. Number three, use gentle words even when upset. Proverbs 15:1, replace accusation, you always, with calm truth, I feel. Lower your tone before trying to fix the issue. Number four, choose peace over winning. Remember Romans 12:18. So take the scripture on Romans 12:18, and apply this to your own life. Do I want to be right or do I want peace? Which one would you choose? Sometimes peace means letting go of small points. Number 5, forgive quickly and intentionally. Colossians 3:13. Don't store up past mistakes. Forgiveness is a decision, not just a feeling, and repeat forgiveness if needed. And then number 6, rebuild unity on purpose. Look at Genesis 2:24 and Mark 10:9. Act like a team again. We versus the problem. Make shared decisions instead of competing ones. Spend intentional time reconnecting, not just logistic talk. And then number 7, rebuild love through actions, not just emotions. In 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, as you saw above, or as you guys heard earlier, patient behavior, kind words, consistent respect, endurance during hard season. Love in the Bible is mostly action based, not just feeling based. It's action, not feeling. And this is where, especially most, this is where most, or I wouldn't say most, this is where I see 75% of women making mistake as is they put it in feelings instead of action. You have to choose to love a person. You can't feel love for that person. Although you do want to feel love for that person, but you want to choose to love that person. Feelings, it goes up and down. It never stays the same. You can't, it's hard to feel love or love someone all the time. It's hard to do that. You have your ups and downs. You have your feelings of ups and down. And because you have your feelings up and down, you be making some mistakes. So instead of putting your love based on feeling, do it in action. Choose to love the person. When you choose to love the person, then everything else will be straight. It's not going to be all over the place. So, biblical marriage repair is not about never fighting. It's about slowing down, speaking gently, forgiving quickly, and choose unity repeatedly. So, and so there's usually the 6 stages of marriage, and I explain the difficult part on stage 3 and what we gotta work on. So I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I'm going to go ahead and state a prayer, and then we'll go ahead and let you guys go. So, dear Heavenly Father, I just pray for you for this day. Lord, I just want to pray that you help the marriages stay together for everyone. Um, help them resolve their differences. Help them to stay together as one flesh. Lord, I just pray that you don't let no distraction separate them and tear them apart. No internet, no uh DMs or porn or all that stuff. None of that stuff. Don't let those things help them not let those things separate them from their marriage and relationship. Lord, I just pray that you keep everyone who is married or is in a relationship, help them to stay together as one. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, everyone. I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Take care, give care, and I will see you guys later.